This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good evening. I will call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Roll call, Mrs. Smith.
Present.
Ms. Riley.
Present.
Thank you. First up, department heads, our health agent, Matt Tanis. Matt, any updates for us?
Yeah, just a couple, just to give you a couple numbers here. So we, as of today, right now, Mass DPH reported to us 84 total cases. That includes life care. To split that up, 41 Raynham residents that have tested positive, and 43 residents from life care that have tested positive. So the total of 84. We have 5 that have passed away, and as of right now, 9 that have recovered completely. Just in regards to life care, still trying really hard to work to get more involved with the life care situation, as the Bureau of Health Care, Safety, and Quality does have the authority and oversight of that facility. I've requested again for the full facility to be tested. See, although the testing's a snapshot in time, I really feel it's the best tool to really do some proactive cohorting of the residents and try to stop the spread as much as possible. So that's all been relayed. I know Life Care is trying to work with DPH and get that accomplished. I don't have any time frame on that, as there's a lot of things that need to happen at the state level to get that done. I've made a couple inspections of some businesses in town that I've received complaints on regarding social distancing and some practices. All those places I visited seem to be in compliance at this time. And just lastly, a big thank you to the school, the Bridgewater Raynham School Department, nurses there. They've offered assistance to me to make some of the calls and do some of the contact tracing that the state is trying to have the towns do to mitigate the spread of the virus here. So as of this week, they've started to help me out, and I really appreciate the assistance.
Good, thank you. Any questions for Matt, Mrs. Smith?
No, I don't have any questions. I just want to say again, Matt, take care of yourself. Thank you. You're doing an awesome job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Riley?
Just a clarification, Mr. Chairman. Matt, that total of 84, that's just active cases right now. Does that include the 9 that have recovered?
That does include the 9, yes.
Okay.
So it'd be 75 active cases. Actually 70, because we had the 5 that have passed away. So 70 total active cases.
Okay. Thank you. And also thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, because you have to keep involved with these people who have active cases to keep in contact with them. And I know it's a lot of work. So thanks to the school district nurses for helping out with that.
Good, thank you. Next up is our town clerk, Marcia Sylvia. Mrs. Sylvia, anything for us?
Yeah. Hi, Joe, and just Board of Selectmen. I just had a couple of things. One was a comment. I actually wanted to thank Matt, to echo what Pat said, because I see everything that he's been doing and all the hours he's been putting in. And, as a resident, I'm just really so proud of him, and we're just so lucky to have him, because I see what he does, and he's very, very good at it, and it's very much appreciated. So I did want to just say that. I also wanted to ask the Selectmen if they have any plan to compensate some of the people that are coming in to work while others are home. I realize some people can work remotely from home, but others aren't able to. So I was just wondering if there's any plan the Selectmen have to compensate some of the people, like with comp time or something like that. I'm not asking for myself because I'm salaried and, I don't get that, but I was just wondering if there was any plan to do that.
Sure. Comments, Mrs. Smith, Ms. Riley?
The only comment I can make that is I understand exactly where she's coming from. I was wondering, we're not through with their contract yet for the year, right? So perhaps this ought to go to the union.
Okay. Ms. Riley, any comments?
Negotiations haven't actually gotten started with our clerical union, but I appreciate everything that everyone is doing, but I think to ask our taxpayers to pay additional when many of them are facing unemployment, possibly losing their job, and maybe if they work for a small business, won't ever be recalled. So I think keeping that in mind, I really don't want to, if we don't have to put more burden on our taxpayers. Again, I really appreciate everybody doing their jobs and realize that, you know, they are putting in extra effort, but our town employees are coming into the offices and they're not having to deal with the public like our police and fire are, you know, so I wouldn't, as Mrs. Smith said, maybe we can take it up under negotiations going forward, but at this time I wouldn't entertain that. I will
Okay.
say, again, I do
Could I
appreciate.
say something? It's not even necessarily money, Ms. Riley. It's maybe comp time or something for some of the people. I just, normally we'd probably discuss this at a department head meeting, but because we haven't been able to have any, that's the only reason why I am asking the Board of Selectmen, you know, during a meeting right now, because it's just, I just thought it should be brought up.
Perhaps a compromise could be we can take the request under advisement and I know there's some correspondence from OPEIU to relative to negotiations. And so when we go into an executive session on that, this might potentially be an issue that can be discussed upon that as well. And we can evaluate what's going on, because I hear the sentiment from both sides, but I think we've had some very dedicated and loyal staff who are showing up in some instances on a daily basis. And I think a little further review might be beneficial before we just completely dismiss it.
I would agree, Mr. Chairman. I'll make that motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Next up,
Thank
veterans.
you. Joe, could I just say one more thing, Joe?
Sure, sorry.
I just, in case anybody sees a sign in front of the town hall, it says, proud supporter of a BR graduate. I had that put there. I got it to donate some money towards the graduates, and I thought it might be nice to have it at the town hall so the graduating class could see it, because it's a central location. Do the selectmen have any objections to that?
I don't know if Mrs. Smith or Miss Riley do.
I do not.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Our veterans agent, Michaela Brito. Michaela?
Mr. Chairman, ladies, thank you again for everything that you guys have been doing. I'd like to recognize Matt, Graham Waters, our town administrator, and Liz Mora, who have helped out immensely with helping with coordinating different events that we've been doing. I'm still out there helping our veterans with many different things. And some of the different organizations that have helped us is Dirty Water Distillery down in Plymouth. They've given us disinfectant and hand sanitizer, and I've been passing that out to our veterans. Veterans Association of Bristol County, which is located down in Fall River, they've been helping with food pantry stuff when our food pantry hasn't been available, and they've assisted 3 families. Plus they came here to Raynham and we did it at the senior center, and that was on April 3rd, and we gave out 35 families. On Mass Military Support Foundation, Ocean State, and the Craft Group had food distributions at Gillette Stadium for 10 days. One day, Brian Glavin and his daughter Nikki and Debbie Dooney assisted me in packaging and distributing over 300 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables to our Chapter 115 veterans. I'd also like to thank Simpson Springs Company for donating 48 gallons of water to us, and Lowe's and the fire department and the police department for paying tribute to PFC Justin Kirby from New Bedford as they brought his body home from California. They brought him straight from Logan Airport to the cemetery in New Bedford because of the fact of COVID, and they couldn't have a real funeral. And I'd also like to thank 2 different VSOs, Estelle Flett from Norton and Carol Freitas from Westport. We've been coordinating a lot of different things and brainstorming with each other with how we can help our veterans within small towns. Oh, and I'd also like to thank Chris Buckley. One person who has done so much by bringing together so many people within our community is Jody Viola. She established a group called Sewing to Save, and they've made thousands of face masks that have been distributed all over the community, and a bunch of other places that need them, healthcare providers and whatnot. They've helped supply almost 100 face masks to the town of Raynham, and I have given them out to different veterans, several of them who are immune compromised or have underlying health issues. And it's just been really great being able to coordinate with Matt and Liz and being able to do everything that we've done over the past few weeks. So I truly appreciate everybody, and I appreciate your time.
Great, thank you, Michaela. Mrs. Smith, any comments?
No, Michaela, thank you very much. And thank all the people who have helped anybody in town, veteran, non-veteran, or whatever. You're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you,
Ms.
ma'am.
Riley.
Yeah, I would just echo that, Mr. Chairman. And Michaela, you and everyone that you mentioned there are all part of our hometown heroes, and it makes us all very proud that we're part of this community. Thank you so much for everything you're doing and all of those assisting.
Thank you.
Right.
Oh, one more thing, sir. I have made certificates of appreciation coming from my office, plus also written up a small letter just thanking them for each of their contributions to the community.
Great, thank you.
Good job.
All right, that is it for department heads appointments. We have the nomination of Inspector of Animals, Kevin Marrero. What's the board's pleasure?
Motion.
I'll nominate Kevin as the Inspector of Animals.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All right.
That's
Aye.
approved. Thank you. Town Administrator's report, Mr. Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The annual town meeting warrants, the new deadline is April 30th, coming up at the end of the month. And of course, we've bumped back the town meeting dates. The boards and committees continue to set up telemeetings as needed and conduct training with Mike Halen. There are very specific instructions on posting notifications and allowing public listen-only participation, so the training that Mike has provided is quite important. All of staff at Town Hall and other departments are adjusting to the new normal, taking care of town business as they're able, and many of our employees have shown a fantastic willingness to accommodate our residents and assist them with their needs, and trying to meet them halfway, quite sometimes literally. I believe our town clerk did something with a marriage certificate out in the parking lot, which was pretty neat to watch from my window. Our licensing and permitting software is moving forward. I just signed the contract with OpenGov today for the Viewpoint software, which will be in place in the next month or two. And then the next regularly scheduled Selectmen's meeting is Tuesday, April 21st, at 7 p.m. If all things remain the same, it'll be right here, same bat channel, same bat time on telemeeting, and instructions for public participation will be posted with the agenda. And finally, echoing everybody else, thank you to our police officers, our firefighters, and our health agent who continue to face a level of uncertainty with each call that comes in and personal contacts that they make. So that is all I have, Mr. Selectman.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Mrs. Smith, any questions, comments?
No, I do not.
Thank you, Ms. Riley.
No, just again, thank you also, Mr. Waters, for your efforts. And certainly you said very well at the end how we really appreciate everything everyone is doing to help out at this time.
Great, thank you. Selectmen's report, Mrs. Smith.
Well, there's really nothing to report. Everything's quiet on the home front. I do wish, though, that people would just stay home. I know everybody on television, I listen to the governor, I listen to the mayor, I listen to everybody, and they say the same thing: stay home, stay home. And yet there are people who are going shopping and riding around and gathering. Please stay home. We want this thing to get over with. I'm tired of staying home. I want to get back out in the world. So please, if anybody is watching or listening to this, stay home as best you can. I don't need another 6 weeks of this. Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Riley, anything?
I so agree with Mrs. Smith. I don't like the social distancing. I hope it gets over sooner rather than later. Just a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. We need to approve minutes of several meetings. Should we put that on the agenda for next week?
Yes, thank you. And I accept responsibility for that. I added citizen and community input to this agenda, but I neglected to ask for that. So that's on me.
Sure, no problem. It'll be March 10th regular meeting, the March 16th emergency meeting, and the March 24th, March 31st telemeetings, and last week's meeting and this week's, if they're done by next week. And the
Correct.
only other thing is, at last week's meeting, Mr. Chairman, we had a recommendation for the master plan, and I made the motion to approve the recommendation. I wasn't totally sure. It wasn't clear what we were approving. I think it was probably the recommendation from Serpent as far as the composition of the committee. And you also had,
Correct.
you had mentioned that we might want to include someone from capital planning, and I intended to have that as part of the motion. So maybe just for the record, if I could read what that makeup is: 2 members of the planning board, 1 of town administration, 1 of the council on aging, 1 representative from the school district, 1 from the Conservation Commission, 1 from Parks and Recreation, 1 from the Finance Committee, 1 from Historical Commission, and 2 at-large members. I know and I'm sure you have too, gotten a couple of interests from people wanting to be an at-large member. Maybe if anybody out there is interested, if they send a letter and explain why they want to serve on that committee and send it to the Selectmen's office, then we can go from there.
Yep, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, I do have a couple things. We've given some accolades to a lot of people, and there's one employee in town that hasn't received any, and that's Tim Grabaz, our IT director. So I wanted to make sure that the board acknowledges him. He helped get us set up to have these telemeetings, including getting us set up with laptops so we all can participate, I think, in a more efficient manner. So my appreciation to Tim for that. Mr. Tanis and I spoke yesterday, and he had let me know that the BR school district had offered the nurses as assistants, as he mentioned in our report as well. And I just wanted to, I extended my appreciation to Superintendent Swenson yesterday, but publicly just wanted to reiterate Matt's appreciation and the town's appreciation for BR stepping up and offering those additional resources to us. I know Matt probably seemed the most relieved I've seen him, or at least heard him, in a couple weeks. So appreciation to Derek and his team for that. A couple other things. Mr. Waters, question for you. Can I have a status update on the generator? I worked late last night, and I know some power was out, and when I drove by Town Hall, it was pitch black, and I'm curious if the generator that we had bought is not functioning, or if it is, there was an error.
So the generator is functioning. The problem is with the gas meter that feeds the gas is size too small. Columbia Gas has been responsible for replacing that meter, and they have prioritized other projects, I suppose. But that's the status. We're waiting on Columbia Gas to replace our gas meter with a larger one. The one that we have now has been causing issues, and we've had a couple incidences where I believe the meter that we currently have is too small to service both the town hall and the generator at the same time.
Okay, my suggestion, if the board's on board with it, is that we reach out to Columbia Gas, because my understanding is they typically prioritize government entities. The taxpayers footed the bill for this generator, and the fact that it could have been used yesterday and it wasn't, I think, to me, is a little concerning. So if the board would be amenable to it, I'd like to have a letter drafted and formally requesting from Columbia Gas this being prioritized.
I'll make
Yep.
that as a motion.
Second, if it's a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I have one other thing under my selectmen's report. Last week, along with I think a lot of other elected officials in Massachusetts, offered communication to the Attorney General relative to car insurance premiums and potential reimbursement, as claims have decreased it was our opinion that insurance premiums should as well. The Attorney General and the Commissioner of Insurance have been working on it. And as of today, about 6 or 7 insurance companies in Massachusetts have now rolled out a plan pending regulatory approval to issue premium reimbursements or credits on bills moving forward. While I can't take the credit for this, I think this is a fine example of areas where the government can work with the private sector and deliver some very much needed assistance to the residents of Massachusetts during this trying time. I would say to those who have auto insurance, you should check with your particular provider, not your agent, but your provider. Most of them have the information on the websites. I myself have Arbella. They announced that today. They will be giving a premium. It was very easy to follow on their website, and no action is necessary by me or any Arbella policyholders. If you paid in full, you'll get a check in the mail, and if you didn't pay in full, you'll get a credit on your bill. But I wanted to highlight that.
Well, thank you very much, Joe. I also have Arbella. Now it's nice to know I don't have to do anything.
Well, you'll be getting about $60, Mrs. Smith, and then you can buy me a cup of coffee.
Oh, you got it, Joe.
Wonderful. Emergency business, COVID-19 related items. Mrs. Smith, anything?
No, go ahead.
Ms. Riley?
No, thank you.
Okay. I do have a couple under this as well. On April 3rd, the governor signed specific legislation, an act to address challenges faced by municipalities and state authorities resulting from COVID-19. Within that accompanying legislation, it provided for, and it spells it out, the executive authority, the executive branch of government, which in the town of Raynham is the Board of Selectmen, to take action if we're so inclined on some particular things. And what I'm asking for is the board's approval to opt in to 3 particular sections of this legislation, specifically Section 7, due dates of real and personal property tax bills and applications for exemptions and waiver of interest in certain late payments. So Section 7A, local option to extend due dates of property tax bills for communities such as Raynham that are due May 1st. We, as the executive branch of government, can extend that to June 1st, and I'm requesting the board's unanimous vote on this.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you. The next section is local option to extend the due date for exemption and deferral applications. Again, the executive branch of government, which is the Board of Selectmen, are allowed to do this, and this will allow for exemptions that were due from April 1st to a date not later than June 1st. I would request unanimous approval to extend that date to June 1st.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Section 7C, local option to waive interest on certain payments made after due dates. Again, the executive branch of government, which is the Board of Selectmen, are allowed to waive interest on certain payments made after due dates. And that would be on non-payment of taxes or fees with due dates on or after March 10th if paid on or before June 30th. I would request unanimous approval of that.
So moved.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the original legislation required communities to mail notice to all taxpayers. That has since been modified. And the posting requirements are, for example, posting it on the town's website. I think what we just approved this evening, and I'm appreciative that the board chose to act on it, is to provide some additional relief to the residents of Raynham. We have well over 4 million people now who've applied for unemployment insurance in the United States. That continues to climb on a daily basis, and I think this is going to provide some much needed relief to our residents. I would also request that the board instruct Mr. Waters to liaise with our town treasurer collector to follow the posting requirements as outlined by the governor and as the board has just ordered. Is there a motion for that?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The
Mr.
last
Chairman,
thing
Mr. Chairman, can you please repeat that motion?
So you have just been voted to coordinate with the treasurer collector to ensure all posting had been adhered to consistent with the legislation that the governor has signed.
All righty.
I have one other thing under COVID-19 related items. The treasurer collector had requested consideration for the waiving of the online payment fee of 25 cents. I had requested that we look into seeing if the vendor would waive that fee. Mr. Waters, have you had any luck getting a status update on this?
I have not. I brought that to the treasurer collector's attention. I believe he was going to check with the vendor. I don't know if he's heard back yet. That's all I have on it right now.
Okay. Has this been put in place yet? Because I wanted to see it on the agenda and it wasn't on this week, so I hope it
I didn't
hasn't
have
been
a
put.
chance to get it to Deb's attention for this week. It's my intention to put it on for next week. I know Mike has reached out to the vendor about this. I'm not sure. I believe it's being considered by them. I know Mike told me it takes a while for them to put things into place.
Okay, so you'll have it on the agenda for next week with an update?
Right.
Yes.
Right, thank you. Next up, the past few weeks, we haven't had citizen and community input because of the nature of the agendas, but I felt where we're starting to get into more business that's not COVID related, we should put that back on. So I would ask if anybody who wants to add any comment, please state your name and address and speak one at a time, because I don't have the advantage of seeing anybody's face, so I don't know who is who. Any
You're lucky.
citizen, community, I'm sorry, what?
I said you're lucky.
Yeah, any citizen and community input?
Hey, Joey, this is Mike from Raycam just chiming in. What I can do starting next week, if you are so obliged, I can, we have viewers on Facecam. We've been streaming it live, and I can kind of monitor that and give you a heads up if any questions come in when the time is pertinent.
That would be awesome. If there's no objection from the board on that.
None.
No objection.
Thank you. All right. New business policy to ensure equitable communication. This is something that I've asked to put on the agenda. And what I'm looking for is when communication comes out from the Selectmen's office. Right now, communication comes and whoever's on the emails BCC'd. I think in the interim, what would be beneficial for me at least is that everybody on an email, it's either in the to field or the CC field. I recognize some of the thought behind it is the open meeting law, but the open meeting law only applies if you're deliberating. So if we get emails and the board has questions, the board should reach out to the town administrator on an individual basis. But I think this will allow us to see who's getting what communication when, and I believe it will better ensure equitable communication moving forward.
That's not a problem. You're right, Mr. Chairman. I was doing that for open meetings purposes, and I can move that from BCC to CC in the board.
Wonderful. Is there any objection, Mrs. Smith, Ms. Riley?
No.
I have no objection. Just again, a caution that email deliberations can be a violation of the open meeting law. So we just need to coordinate with the town administrator and not with each other.
Correct. Thank you. All right. So that we can expect that to start happening tomorrow, Mr. Waters?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Wonderful, thank you. Next up is the citizens petition. Mr. Gelfi has submitted, and as I understand it, has been certified a petition for the town meeting warrant relative to banning styrofoam in the town. Where it's a citizens petition and it's been certified with the signatures, all the board has to do is vote to have it included on the town meeting. What's the board's pleasure?
I will motion for it to be put on the town meeting. I could read it as it's in very small print, but it is a petition, so therefore it will be on the town meeting.
Correct.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved. We have 2 tag day requests, Taunton Easton Little League and House of Hope. I believe they're in June. My recommendation to the board would be to approve, obviously contingent upon the nature of what we're dealing with at that time. But I think these organizations would recognize that if we're status quo at this point come that time, they're not going to be permitted to do it. What's the board's pleasure?
I would agree with you and vote to approve.
I'll second that motion with the qualification that you outlined, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Unanimous. Next up is alteration of premises, barrels, and boards. Miss Riley, I understand you wanted this on the agenda.
Not particularly. I just mentioned that if any business had come before us, we put it on the agenda, and if we would just want to table it, which is what I think I would do with this, is table it and refer it to our building commissioner.
Sure.
What do they do anyway?
My understanding is they're looking to put a deck on the property, but in order for us to act on this, we'd have to have a hearing. So I think a good first step is the building commissioner taking a look. But my recommendation on something like this would be to postpone it indefinitely. A, because of the nature of our meetings right now, but B, because restaurants can't have diners anyways.
Right, absolutely.
All right, so is that a motion?
Motion to table, yes, and refer it to our building commissioner.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Right. If there's no emergency business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I think, Mr. Chairman, since we're doing it a little bit differently, just so that the record is accurate, we make a motion to approve the town payroll and invoice warrants. And then a second motion to approve the police department invoices and payroll warrants, just for clarification, since we're not actually signing them ourselves, and to authorize our town administrator to sign on our behalf. But maybe it's two motions so that you can act accordingly, Mr. Chairman, for your protection.
Sure. So
The first motion would be to approve the town of Raynham invoice and payroll warrants.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Thank you.
And secondly, to approve the police department payroll and invoice warrants.
Second.
I will abstain. All in favor?
Aye.
And then one abstention. Great. So we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.